Welcome back, everybody. All right, so let's go ahead and let's make a laptop here. So, going with the Blender model here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this down, and I'm going to push the Z key to scale along the Z axis. And again, when you do that, it locks everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do that here, and I'm going to scale it along the Y axis. And this is going to be the keyboard here. Now, it depends what you want to do. If you want to actually model a computer and model each one of the keys, you're more than welcome to do that. In fact, I'm going to show you an easy way to do that. However, if you're doing it like that, it's not exactly the best cost-efficient way in terms of vertices. However, what we will do here is let's tap into edit mode for just a second here. Let's hop into face select, and what we're going to do is we're just going to scale that bottom. Not too much, not too much, just a little bit, just like that. And so this kind of gives the laptop a it kind of gives the laptop a little bit of a it just gives it a little bit of a character here. Now, let's hop into edge select this time. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to push 3, and by selecting that edge, and I'm just going to simply move it like that. Okay. Hop back into face select mode. Okay. Push 3 again. Push extrude, and in this case, it's already locked to an axis, which is great. And I'm just going to do that here. Okay. Now, here we have two options here. Now, if you think of a laptop, you know how you open it up and you can kind of swivel the back screen. In fact, I'm just going to push 3 again. This back bit is a bit too much. I'm just going to move it back in there. Okay. So when you open a laptop, you can think it can swivel and whatnot. When you model something within 3D modeling program or whatever, what ends up happening is that everything is locked and solid. And if you want it to actually swivel, that's a whole other process. You have to add in joints, and depending on your 3D modeling program, it might not work in the game engine that you're trying to use. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to push extrude. Now here we go. We have a very nice low poly laptop. And again, if you're playing a really old game, or watching even an old movie with computer graphics in it, it would probably be something like this. However, there's a couple things that look a little bit weird. First things first, it's almost at a 90-degree angle. Let's take that back. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that here. So in order to do that, I selected the top face, pushed 3 on the numpad, and then moved it back here. Okay. So here we go. That actually looks pretty cool. Let's go ahead. Let's select this in here, this face. I'm going to push E to extrude, right click, and I'm going to scale this in just a bit, and I'm just going to move it back. Now, if you move it back too far, this actually creates an impossible object. And what I mean by that is that you technically can't have this face kind of come through that. So it has to be within that space here. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to move it back, something like that, and there we go. So you can see we have this nice little a nice little area right in there. What we could do, I mean, like if you look at laptops here, we can add in the trackpad and whatnot here. But before we do that, we can actually do just two things. We can either add in like the keyboard area or the trackpad, or we can add in a bevel modifier. So let's go ahead and let's add that bevel modifier and see how it looks. Let's up the segments a bit, maybe to like 6 or 7. Now again, if you look at this, it's quite a lot of segments. So let's actually take that down to 5. All right. And again, if you're going for full architectural modeling, put that way up, because it'll give you a nice smooth edge. The more quote-unquote smooth edges that you see, the more vertices you have. So when you're designing your games or your indie movies or whatnot, and try to go for a sharper aesthetic. That way you can use less vertices. Okay, so let's just take that down to 5, and I think that should be good. Okay, so you can see here that we have this nice bevel at the bottom here. Everything looks quite nice. One thing that I would like to do though is it's a little too thick. So I'm going to just take that down because laptops today are actually quite thin. All right, and I'm going to scale that out just a bit. There we go. There we go. That actually looks pretty cool. And if you want to, you can actually up the width a bit. And that way, it looks a little bit more smooth. Let's tab back into object mode. Just take a quick look at how this looks. Yeah, and so that actually looks kind of cool. Let's go ahead and apply that. Let's tab back into edit mode there. Now you can see here that there's a lot of wasted vertices, like kind of around there. That's just the way it goes, especially if you're going to use the modifier here. So let's go ahead. Let's click on this here. Let's do two things. Let's extrude, right click, and I'm going to scale that in. I'm actually going to scale it in quite a bit. And what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to move it around. And I'm going to scale it on this time. I'm going to push scale and then the X axis. And so all this is that this is going to be the keyboard kind of well. I'm just going to move that down just a bit. Right, and you can see that there's like a little bit more detail here. Now again, if you're using this in a game, what I showed you before with very low poly is a lot better here. I'm going to select this here. I'm going to push extrude, right click, and I'm going to scale this in just like that. And there's two things you can do. You can always do things more than one way in Blender. And in this case, I'm just going to simply move that in here. And if you look at this here, everything looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and let's select face and just simply move that down just a bit. Or you can go extrude that down just a bit if you want to. In fact, let's do that up here. So I'm just going to move this up and I'm going to extrude it down. So there we go. We got the keyboard well here. Now, this is pretty good by itself. If I tab into object mode, this actually looks like a pretty cool laptop. If you really wanted to add in the keys, we can do that. But in order to do that, I'm going to actually stop the tutorial here, and I'm going to show you how to add the keys in the next tutorial. I'll see you guys then.